Have you ever studied English for years, but when someone suddenly speaks to you, your mind goes blank? You remember grammar rules. You remember vocabulary lists. You even remember difficult words like opportunity, determination, and accommodation. But when it's time to speak, nothing comes out. Then someone else with simple English starts talking confidently, making small mistakes, but still communicating easily. And you sit there wondering why. Why does English feel natural for them, but stressful for you? Maybe the problem is not your memory. Maybe the problem is the way you've been learning English. Most people are trying to memorize English instead of living it. And that reminds me of a man named Kevin who worked in a small electronics shop in the city. Every day, customers walked into the shop speaking English. Some spoke fast, some spoke casually, and some even used broken grammar, but they still communicated without fear. Kevin, on the other hand, had notebooks full of vocabulary words. Every night, he studied long lists of English words for hours. He thought that was the secret to fluency. The more words he memorized, the better his English would become. But one afternoon, a customer walked into the shop and asked, "Hey man, do you have a charger for Samsung?" Suddenly, Kevin froze. His heart started beating fast, not because the question was difficult, but because real English sounded different from textbook English. His mind started searching through grammar rules and vocabulary lists while the customer stood there waiting. Finally, Kevin answered slowly, "Yes, we have charger." The customer smiled politely, but Kevin felt embarrassed because deep down, he knew something was wrong. That night, he went home frustrated. He opened his notebook again and stared at hundreds of words he had memorized. Suddenly, he asked himself, "If I know so many words, why can't I speak?" Honestly, maybe you have asked yourself the same question. Maybe you know more English than you think, but when it's time to use it, your brain becomes nervous because real communication is not about remembering perfect vocabulary. Real communication is emotional. It is human. It is spontaneous. Kevin slowly started discovering this. The next morning, he decided to stop memorizing random words for a while. Instead, he focused on one simple real-life situation: buying coffee. That was it. Just buying coffee. While walking to work, he practiced a few small sentences. Can I get a coffee? How much is it? Can I pay by card? I'd like some sugar. Thank you. The sentences were simple, almost too simple, but something strange started happening. The more he repeated those real-life phrases, the more natural they felt. Not memorized, natural. Later that day, he walked into a small cafe. The cashier smiled and asked, "Good morning. What can I get for you?" Usually, Kevin would panic in situations like this, but this time, the answer came out naturally. "Can I get a medium coffee with milk?" Smooth, easy, real. The conversation lasted maybe 20 seconds, but for Kevin, it felt like a huge victory because For the first time, English felt connected to real life instead of study notes. Here is something important that many learners never realize. One real conversation can improve your English more than memorizing 200 isolated vocabulary words, because your brain remembers situations, emotions, and experiences much faster than random information. After that day, Kevin changed the way he learned English completely. Instead of studying long vocabulary lists, he started studying moments, conversations, situations, and feelings. When he was tired, he practiced sentences like, "I'm exhausted today. I need some rest." Work was stressful. When he felt hungry, he practiced phrases like, "I could really eat something. I skipped lunch today. I'm starving." He stopped memorizing single words and started learning complete thoughts, complete emotions, and complete situations. Because native speakers do not communicate one word at a time. They speak in chunks, patterns, and expressions. Slowly, Kevin started noticing changes. His confidence became stronger. His reactions became faster, and English started feeling less like a school subject and more like a real tool for communication. A few weeks later, something happened that normally would have terrified him. His cousin invited him to a birthday dinner, and there were several guests from different countries. Everyone was speaking English. Usually, Kevin would stay quiet during situations like that, maybe smiling, maybe pretending to check his phone, maybe hoping nobody would ask him questions. Maybe you know that feeling too. Wanting to speak, but feeling afraid of making mistakes, afraid of your accent, afraid people will judge you. Kevin sat quietly for almost 30 minutes until someone at the table looked at him and asked, "So Kevin, what do you do?" For a second, fear returned. But this time, instead of trying to sound perfect, he focused on expressing himself simply. "I work in an electronics shop. I help customers choose phones and accessories." Simple English. Not advanced English, but real English. Suddenly, the conversation continued naturally. Someone asked another question. Another person laughed. Kevin relaxed more and more. That night, he realized something powerful. People care more about connection than perfection. Most people are not listening to your English trying to discover mistakes. They are simply trying to understand you. That realization changed Kevin completely, because memorization had trained him to fear mistakes. But real communication taught him that mistakes are normal. Even native speakers make mistakes sometimes. After that dinner, Kevin became more curious about how real fluency actually works. He started listening to podcasts, interviews, and YouTube conversations, not to memorize grammar, but to feel the rhythm of English, the flow of English, and the emotion inside English. Instead of translating everything into his native language, he started listening for meaning. One afternoon, his manager called him at work and said, "Kevin, Can you help the new customer? My English isn't very strong. Immediately, Kevin felt nervous because the customer was from Canada and spoke very fast. At first, Kevin only understood maybe 60% of the conversation. Years ago, that would have made him panic, but now he did something different. He stopped trying to understand every single word and focused on the general meaning. The customer said, "Hey, I'm looking for a decent phone battery because mine dies halfway through the day." Kevin did not understand every single word perfectly, but he understood battery problem. That was enough. So he replied naturally, "Oh, okay. You need stronger battery life." The customer smiled immediately. "Exactly," he said. That one small moment gave Kevin even more confidence because he finally understood that fluency is not about understanding every word. Fluency is about responding naturally, communicating ideas, and staying relaxed in conversation. That is why memorization alone often fails. When you depend too much on memorized vocabulary, your brain keeps searching for perfect words while the conversation continues without you. Fluent speakers do not build every sentence from zero. They repeat familiar patterns again and again until speaking becomes automatic, just like driving a familiar road. Over the next few months, Kevin created a new daily habit. Every morning, he described his life in English. When he woke up, he said, "I'm still tired. Today looks busy. I need coffee." When he cooked, he said, "This smells good. I added too much salt. I'm hungry." When he walked outside, he described the weather, traffic, noise, and people around him. Simple daily English connected to real life. Slowly, something beautiful started happening. English stopped feeling foreign. It stopped feeling like an exam. It became part of his normal thinking. One evening, a customer entered the electronics shop and spoke with Kevin for almost 15 minutes. 15 whole minutes. No freezing. No translating every sentence in his head. No panic. Just conversation. Imperfect conversation, but real conversation. After the customer left, Kevin stood there smiling because, for the first time in his life, English felt alive. Maybe that is exactly what you need to hear today. Maybe your English is not as bad as you think. Maybe you do not need another giant vocabulary list. Maybe you simply need more real-life practice, more listening, more speaking, and more small, imperfect conversations, because language is not a memory competition. Children do not learn language by memorizing dictionaries. They learn through repetition, emotion, listening, and real human interaction. And you can learn the same way. Stop asking yourself, how many words should I memorize? Start asking, how can I use English in my real life today? That question changes everything. Maybe tomorrow morning, you can start with simple sentences. I'm tired today. I need breakfast. Today will be stressful. This coffee tastes good. Small sentences, simple sentences, real sentences. Every time you connect English to your real emotions and real situations, your brain remembers it faster. One day, without even realizing it, you will start speaking more naturally, more calmly, and more confidently, just like Kevin. 6 months later, Kevin met an old friend at a restaurant. They spent the evening laughing, sharing stories, and speaking English naturally. Not perfectly, but comfortably. At one point, his friend looked at him surprised and asked, "Wait, how did your English improve so fast?" Kevin smiled and gave a very simple answer. "I stopped memorizing English and started living it." Honestly, that might be the advice you needed today, because English is not about perfection. It's about expression, and every small conversation you have is progress. If you want real-life English, subscribe for more, because the next video might be exactly what you need.